we have Jordan Yerman. So Jordan is a storyteller. He's a storyteller through photography. His work has been in many different publications, including the Vancouver Observer. And he's going to talk about Street Cat Photo Booth, fame, compassion, machine learning, and curious cats.
Street Cat Photo Booth is exactly what you think it is. It's a multimedia artwork that empowers feral cats to initiate their own photo shoots. So the art-making relationship will be between cat and machine with no human intervention. The Street Cat Photo Booth came from another project called the Street Cat Project, which I started in 2011. And since then, I've been to 5 different countries and exposed over 5,000 photos of street cats, some of which get turned into these multimedia images. The Street Cat Project posits a notional metric for measuring a city through the experiences of the feral and semi-feral cats that call it home. I shot this image in Tokyo last spring, and it took me about 20 minutes to do. I had to sort of get down and approach the cat sideways and sometimes backwards, and then face her with my eyes closed because I didn't want to threaten or scare her, and then eventually trigger the image. And I was happy with what I got, but I couldn't help but think, I don't know, wouldn't it be easier if these cats could just photograph themselves? So this summer, the International Symposium on Electronic Art, IZEA, descended upon Vancouver, and in the city converged some of the most creative minds at the intersection of art and science. And one of those minds belonged to Dr. Lee Smith, who is a computer scientist, data retrieval expert, and artist, and someone I've been friends with for over 10 years. There's Lee. And during an intermission in one of the awesome musical events at IZEA, he turned to me and said, "Dude, why have we never done a project together?" And I thought, damn, that's a good question. So we brought it up again the next day during happy hour, and I told him about my cat selfie idea. And I said, it would be really cool if we had a feline scale photo booth that cats could go into, get shelter, get a quick snack, and then be photographed. And that photo would be instantly shared either through an Instamatic print or put online. So the cats could get fed, and then they could become internet famous. It's a win-win, right? And without missing a beat, Lee said, oh, we could throw some machine learning at it. So it could take a bunch of photos, then pick the best one and only share that. I thought, oh. Then we're getting into generative art, which is basically building things that create art. And you have a machine or a bot that makes decisions that are normally made by a human artist. I thought that was sweet. So we started to define the scope of what we wanted to do. Feline scale shelter, networked. We figured Instamatic would be too much of a pain in the ass. Let's go straight to the internet. Rather than building a website to handle these things, let's just use Instagram because everyone uses it anyway. And then Lee said, oh, we could also have a hook that triggers a Bitcoin mining instance. So every time a photo is uploaded, 30 minutes is spent mining for Bitcoin in the name of a regionally relevant cat support group. So I was thinking, for Vancouver, it would be Vancouver Orphan Kitten Rescue. For the South Bay, it would be Project Bay Cat, that sort of thing. So not only are we feeding feral cats and making them social media stars, we're also giving them gigs in the internet industry. 2 months later, I flew to New York to meet up with Lee, where he is based, and we said we're going to build this prototype. And our base of operations is called the Mun Cave, and it's Lee's hackerspace located deep beneath the streets of Lower Manhattan. It's full of half-completed musical instruments, cables to components that have been long dead, reference manuals, power tools, hand tools, anything you could possibly need to make or break something, it's there. Lee was going to be focused on the heavy lifting, which was the software and the coding, and I was going to be in charge of the aesthetic and the audience experience. So the first thing we had to determine was the look of what Street Cat Photo Booth images were going to look like. And when I shoot for the Street Cat project, the subject and the city do a lot of the heavy lifting. And that will often dictate what the feel, what the vibe is going to look like. So the Tokyo images look really different from the Tel Aviv images, which look different from Reykjavik and all that sort of thing. And when I shoot for Vancouver Orphan Kitten Rescue, I go full glam. Nothing's off the table. because the goal is to get these little animals adopted as quickly as possible. But that's not what we wanted for Street Cat Photo Booth. We wanted to play with the idea of these cats as they're often seen almost like vermin, very much outside their role of a house pet. So we started talking about everything from microscope photography to crime scene photography, and we hit upon ATM footage and CCTV footage and like dash cam footage. And so here we have some dash cam footage. It's an old lady being helped across the street by a guy. But when you look at it, you're like, oh yeah, those are the perps. Like everything looks sketchy as fuck in the dash cam video. And so we thought it would be really cool for a viewer to encounter these cats outside the role of house pet. And then when they re-encounter this cat as something on the street, still with a sense of beauty and identity of its own, that image changes yet again. So it goes from villain to vagrant to media maker. And at the same time, the viewer can confront how we assign arbitrary value to certain types of animals, and by extension, how we assign arbitrary value to other groups of people, all from looking at photos of a cat. So this is the brain and eye of Street Cat Photo Booth. It is a Raspberry Pi 2 computer with a VGA camera, kind of like what you'd see in your laptop. It has a little Wi-Fi dongle there, and it's powered by a little portable USB battery. It's really just the battery I use to charge my phone. And so, since there's no flash, because triggering a flash in a feral cat's eyes is a terrible idea, we needed to let as much light into the booth as possible. So I went to a discount store, and I bought a translucent plastic tub, flipped it on its side, drew a cat's face on it, taped everything to the inside, and just called it good to go. You'll see that we have a little vanity mirror up in there to attract the cat's attention. And then who knows, maybe if the cat wants to give themselves a little spruce up, they can do that. Meanwhile, Lee was doing the real work, which was the coding. So the first generation of Street Cat Photo Booth was going to be a human triggered. So he put together code that would initiate a photo, save the photo, share it to Instagram, add hashtags and geo-relevant information. And so he bashed together a quick web server because Street Cat Photo Booth will be connected to the internet at large through my mobile phone. We have this web server that you just tap on the meow button and that initiates a photo event. So we tested it in the hackerspace with a tea kettle on which we'd drawn a cat's face. And we were very happy with photographing the tea kettle. Everything worked, but we had to test the core thesis of what we were doing, that real life feral cats would go into this booth of their own accord. Time to hit the streets of Brooklyn. So we went down to Midwood. I don't know if you guys have ever spent a weekend in New York City. If you did, you've never been to Midwood. It's halfway down the borough on the way to Coney Island. Well, we got off the train, and right away, locals were interested in what we were doing, so that was encouraging. Brooklyn-based artist named Maura McHugh volunteered her apartment as our staging area, so we could set it up, do a final web server test, and make sure everything was working before taking it into the alleys. And in her apartment, it got really silly because she has cats, and they just loved this thing. The carpet, by the way, was reclaimed from a failed bank in Lower Manhattan, and its green is meant to evoke the color of money, and we just thought that was hilarious. So we took it down into this alley, and the smell in that alley was, well, I'll never forget it. After 5 days of solid rain, it still smelled absolutely awful. So I found a reasonably clear space in which to set up the photo booth, plugged everything in, and then we retreated down the alley behind a fence to a safe distance. And I turned and faced Maura and Lee and said, normally I have to wait for up to an hour after I've left for the feral cats to feel comfortable and come out. And as I was saying that, they were kind of looking over my shoulder, and so I turned around to see that 3 feral cats were already investigating the photo booth. And the alley, as you can see, is just full of crap. There's like discarded furniture, there's food waste, and since feral cats will pretty much eat garbage, it couldn't have been the little scraps of kibble that we left in there. It was their curiosity that brought them in there. And that curiosity made them famous. Everything worked the way we wanted it to. People were finding the Instagram account, which was pretty cool, and high fives all around, but we didn't want to leave it at one test. We thought, well, let's test it in another area. We went up to Greenpoint, which is near Williamsburg, And as you probably know, it's synonymous with gentrification. Basically, all these new towers are going up, lifelong residents are getting pushed out. It's also the locus of New York City's loft laws, which is bringing formerly illegal dwellings kind of into the legal fold, which also leads to displacement. We thought thematically it was perfect as a place to test this. A friend of ours lives in Greenpoint. He's lived there for a very long time, and so he knew where to find feral cats. So we went to this municipal car depot. Spoiler alert. And set up the booth. These two sketchy guys in hoodies, we ran up with this box. It looks like a bomb. It has these wires hanging out of it and these blinking lights. And so we run up to this city edifice, put it down and run across the street. Luckily, there was no one else on the street to see something and say something. And so we had to wait this time a little bit longer behind this parked pickup truck for about 15 minutes before a cat came and explored it. With the safety of the fence in the way, the cat contemplated it for a while before ducking down into the photo booth where we were able to capture another image. High fives all around, celebrated with a beer. I had to fly back to Vancouver, where I built another photo booth. And Lee emailed me the code and walked me through setting it up. And along with Kiriko Watanabe from the West Vancouver Museum, we tested it in this junkyard with these cats that we've been documenting for a couple of years now. As you can see, I've been experimenting with closing off access to keep the cat a certain distance away from the camera. Because meanwhile, Lee has been working on the infrared sensor, which would eliminate human intervention, and the cat would start being photographed as soon as the cat entered the booth. And that leads to the machine learning aspect, which Lee is also working on. And this is how the computer will see the cat image we saw earlier. Now, this is a deep learning convolutional neural net image classifier algorithm, which is a very proper noun. And its masterclass comes from my body of work, those 5,000 images. I had to go through all of them and select the ones that would best exemplify a great cat photo, a good cat photo, and a crappy cat photo. Now, there's another type of machine learning algorithm that Lee has been looking into called the support vector machine, or an SVM, which is not only faster to say, but it's also faster to implement. The downside is it doesn't recognize silhouettes as well, so it could mistake a very large rat for a very small cat, which is immediately problematic in a city like New York, where you have very small cats and very large rats. So in any event, the best we can hope for with the machine learner at first is a 70% success rate. So 30% will be either a false negative, in which it sees a picture of a cat like this and goes, no, that's crap, we'll upload a picture of a cat's ass instead. Or a false positive, in which it sees a picture of a cat's ass and goes, perfect, let's upload that one to Instagram. But it will learn as it goes along. It will build experience just like a human artist would. Street Cat Photo Booth is a candidate project for IZEA 2016. And if we are accepted, Lee and I will go to Hong Kong and demonstrate Street Cat Photo Booth for a few days on the streets of Hong Kong with local cats. And people can follow along either in person if they happen to be in the city, or by following the Instagram account. From there, once we're able to prove that everything works the way we say it will, we're going to open source it. So anyone who wants to build Street Cat Photo Booth can build their own. We envision dozens, maybe hundreds of Street Cat Photo Booths all over the world, uploading images all at the same time, so you can go on 24/7 and look at pictures of cats, and maybe think a bit more about how cities are developing sometimes beyond our control and sometimes leaving us behind. And maybe you won't feel so alone. Or maybe you don't care about any of that and you just want to look at pictures of cats. That's fine too. In the meantime, you can find us at Street Cat Photo Booth on Instagram, or you can follow me on the Street Cat Project, facebook.com/the Street Cat Project. You should also check out Dr. Lee Smith's work. He's the Indiana Jones of data retrieval. This guy is absolutely amazing. And it's leesmith.com, or you can follow me and my photographic works on jordanmatthewYerman.com. Thanks so much, guys.